So just something different for this video. I'm gonna do a voiceover while we do this short ride from Deep to Crossman Lake, and I'll point out a couple things along the way, and then just want to talk about just general sledding, some stuff from the manufacturers, and some stuff about future plans with my sled or any new sleds in the future. So yeah, just leaving McQuaig Bay here on Deep Lake. We're going to get to the big island and turn north and head to Bluff Lake, and then go all along the cliffs at Bluff, and then head to the trail on Crossman. And you'll see Bluff Lake and Deep Lake here are much more rugged than Crossman Lake. Crossman Lake's at a fairly high elevation, so it's up higher on the hills relative to the rest of these lakes, so it looks like it's in a much flatter area, and the country is actually a little different there compared to here, and it's such a short distance, so that's kind of a neat aspect. I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but anyhow. Yeah, I just wanted to chat a little bit about I'm not going to do any videos about the other manufacturers and sled releases and anything like that. So I just wanted to chat a bit about Arctic Cat, and obviously I have not ridden one of the new Catalyst chassis, but I've been pretty much watching every YouTube video and reading every single article that comes out about them. And from what I can tell, being cautiously optimistic, is that their chassis is excellent. Their new chassis handles excellent. I think all the mass centralization, the tweaks they did to the front suspension, the lightness of that, all the little refinements they've done and worked into that chassis, I think you're going to see those be quite the scalpels on the trail. I really have to give it to Snowmobiler TV. They actually, unlike a lot of the others, came out and said that no, the 600 does not feel like an 800 or an 850. I cannot stand when other magazines and stuff say, well, it only comes with the 600, but it feels every bit as powerful as an 850 up to X amount of miles per hour. Yet, sorry, no, they don't. They just don't. And I'm glad Snowmobiler Television said if you're used to an 800 or an 850, this is going to feel a little tired compared to the sled you came off of. So good for saying that, like, tell the bloody truth. So the only thing I don't like about the Cat is to me anyway, in the materials and the photos and stuff, the sled, the plastics look a little cheap in places, and like, mind you, these are still prototype units, so we're gonna take that into account. And they are ugly as sin. They are so ugly. I cannot get over how ugly those sleds are. I'm really not digging the looks of the Cat at all. It just looks like a normal sled that ran into something and got the front pushed in on it. And the G5s kind of look like that too. I think the G5 is a pretty ugly sled myself. I know that's not a popular opinion. I have no desire to own a new Skidoo. I just don't really like much of the products this year from like a me owning them perspective. From an engineering perspective, they're very interesting. But yeah, I don't want to own any of them. The only BRP product that even speaks to me in some way is the Lynx Cross Terrain or X Terrain RE. Both the 850 and the 900 Turbo are really, really nice sleds. I got to try the 850 this year, and it was like a really pretty sweet sled. A little less comfortable than my XM, and that's important to me, so I don't know what I do about that. The other sled that, and this can segue into Polaris, the other sled that I tried this year was a Matrix Assault 850, and they are a damn nice sled. The engine is not anywhere near as nice as the E-Tech, but the overall package is really, really well done. And that chassis is quite comfy. It feels most like the XM, which I've really gotten accustomed to, and very comfortable. The 7S gauge is bloody brilliant. It's not quite as like futuristic looking as the new Skidoo gauge, but the functionality of it is just light years ahead of the Skidoo gauge. So yeah, the handling on that is just amazing. The track length is perfect. The front suspension on those is just really dialed in nice. The rear end, you know, I don't really notice too much of a difference. Like, it rode really, really well when I tried it. You know, and yeah, I would be very happy with like a Matrix chassis sled. If I ever had to go 2-stroke, I would seriously have to look at a Polaris. Some of the other issues that I had with that chassis, hopefully they're getting looked at, like some of the undersized bearings and stuff, but those can be maintenance items. Anyway, I'm not in the market, so I'm definitely not going to buy one. But that brings me into, I'm really liking how Polaris basically constructed their lineup for the last 2 years. So they've got, the brilliant thing to me is they can use the same chassis for all the engine options that they have offered, and that just keeps your flexibility very high on the line when you're, you know, switching to do different models of sleds. And also, you think about it with future planning, you can release a new variant on the Matrix chassis with almost no tooling changes. You're just going to the parts bin and putting different lengths of tunnels and different engines and different configurations of the front suspension together, which is very simple to do. And I think Polaris really knocked her out of the park when they did that, because now they're going to be able to tool up and down and switch things up a lot quicker than, let's say, Skidoo could, because Skidoo does have a more complicated chassis layout and not as many like parts bin interchangeability depending on what engine you want. So it's a little bit more difficult to just plop out a new variant of a sled or switch your tooling up at a moment's notice. You know, I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar company, so I imagine they have they have it covered. But I really like how Polaris is being very smart about how they're doing all the manufacturing. Now, yes, there was recalls, the gas tank recall, the brake recall. There were a lot of issues with that this year, and that sucks. But I think when Polaris gets on top of that, if they learn and change their operations slightly from this year, I think they're going to have a very successful 2024. And the 9R engine is getting really good reviews as well. It's very fast spooling, very rev happy engine for boondocking and for doing like backcountry tight tree riding. You need a very technical, very like connected feel to the engine. That motor's apparently doing really, really well. And I haven't heard anything bad about the 850s and 650s lately. I think they've refined those engines to the point where they're pretty dang reliable, and I would have no problem owning either one. And their new 4-stroke looks pretty sweet too. Not quite as refined feeling, I'm sure, as the 900, but something different, and something that you can get on the full-fledged Matrix chassis with the 7S display. I really like how Polaris doesn't close you off from options depending on what engine you choose, like Skidoo does. So I hope Skidoo in the end would do the same thing as Polaris does, to simplify their model line a little bit and just allow you more options during spring check. So that's kind of my take on you know, sort of Polaris and Skidoo and Arctic Cat. I'm thinking you're going to see the relationship with Yamaha go bye-bye in the next few years, because Arctic Cat is now on the Catalyst chassis. They're going to dump the Pro Cross chassis in short order, and I think once they have their new either 800, 850, 900, whatever it's going to be, in the Catalyst chassis, I think you'll see them with a lineup and a philosophy similar to that of Polaris, where it's like, let's get some 2-strokes, let's make them potent, let's do a really good job on them, let's get this chassis dialed in perfect, and then go in-house with Textron for a 4-stroke engine and then just massage it to fit that chassis. Sure, it could be done. And anyhow, that's what I think is going to happen. And if Yamaha does not construct their own chassis, I could see them doing two things, just going away, or three things: going away and not dealing with the snowmobile game. They will buy the rights to the Procross chassis and build a foundation off that, although I don't know if that's a smart move. Or they'll build their own chassis. So anyhow, we're on Bluff Lake and we are coming up the trail to this is my childhood camp. I pretty much grew up at this camp. My father and a friend of his partnered on it. It's changed a little bit since I was a kid, but yeah, still that's my childhood, where I grew up. And I love the shot coming out here on Bluff Lake, and you see all the rugged mountains in the distance there, and they don't look like much, but they're quite impressive when you're in them in person, and very like sheer cliffs, very rugged. And then in the bay on the right hand side, there's a pretty huge frozen waterfall there that I don't know if you're going to see it. I'm not sure if the Hyper Smooth cut that off when I looked over that way. So anyhow, then we're gonna head up to another person's camp on the same lake. Yeah, no, we didn't quite see the waterfall, but this camp's in a kind of a neat spot too, right along the Narrows. And yeah, and after this, we're gonna head back to Deep Lake and go check out another friend of mine who I'm still in touch with. His family has a camp up there, and we'll go check that one out and then probably head back. So yeah, this is kind of a neat spot. They, put an addition on, and nice little view from here. Pretty decent amount of snow this year, which is good. So yeah, heading back down onto the lake and then heading to the trailhead here. So anyway, future plans for what I would do with my sled. Like basically, I'm not in the market. It's not that I can't be in the market. I can be in the market for a new sled, but I don't have the desire. Like no sled really speaks to me at all, especially after trying a lot of the Gen 4 sleds and the Gen 5. I just don't like them at all. And besides, I really do not want to get rid of my XM. I dread having to give that thing up in any way, shape, or form. I love riding it. Anybody that has ridden it has very much complimented the handling and the way it kind of is set up. So that pretty much validates that I did the right thing here, and it's still like a wicked sled to drive around. Still handles like a friggin' dream with the exit shocks front and rear and all the changes that we've made to it. So it's a great sled. I am not giving it up. So I have some other plans for it. I'm going to keep it for the long haul. Practically everything is kept in like new condition on it anyway. So the sled is pretty much like brand new. I am going to put a Do Doctor floating secondary on it, and I'm going to put a C3 Synchro Drive belt drive, kit in the chain case. And we're going to I'm going to gear it a little bit higher. Right now I'm geared at roughly a 2.13 drive ratio, and I'm going to gear it for a 2.0 drive ratio. So we'll go with like a 27 top gear, 54 bottom gear when I do the belt drive. So it'll be geared so that when the clutch is pretty much like it'll hit 160 kilometers an hour, and that will be the gearing limit for that sled. That'll be the top speed, because you really don't want to run really long tracks like that's on this sled at too high a speed, just because of the extra length and the extra material. It can balloon out, it can throw lugs, although this one's a Cobra 1.6 track, so it's a trail length lug, and I'm not really too worried about throwing lugs or throwing a track or anything like that with this. So yeah, I am going to gear it a bit higher and, you know, clutch it accordingly. The other thing that we're going to do is I am going to buy a crate, brand new 800 E-Tech crate engine. And then I'm going to get the RK Tech drop-in kit with the with their pistons, which changes the port timing, and I'm going to also buy a head from them that's already machined. The combustion chamber's already machined their specs, and that gives you about a 12 horsepower increase. So I'll have an 800 that will be making the same horsepower as an 850, and honestly, that's all I need. I mainly just want the extra mid-range torque from that kit, and yeah, so that's what we're going to do. So yeah, stopping at my my buddy's camp here, my buddy Devin. This is his camp, and that's his, I believe, uncle, and his new like husky, I think Malamute or Shepherd Malamute mix. Anyway, really cute dog. So just heading out and heading back to camp. But yeah, anyway, that's the plan. And when I pull after next year, I'll swap the engines. I'll pull the quote-unquote old motor out of this, and I will do a full rebuild on it with the RK Tech kit, and I will shelve it. So I will have a spare 800 E-Tech and a fresh engine in the sled. So I'll have years, hopefully years of longevity in this sled. I'm also going to buy most of the sensors just to have as spare, and some of the parts that may be difficult to get in the future. I'm going to buy spares of them just so I have them to change out. And some people might be looking at that going, well, that's kind of dumb. Why would you spend that money and just, you know, why don't you just get a new sled? You know, it's like, what could I get for this sled? I would not get what I want to get for it, so I'd be losing anyway. And I don't really think the sled I would get, if it was a Skidoo, would actually handle as good, and I would not be as happy with it. If it was a Polaris, perhaps it would handle just as good, but honestly, I just don't have the desire for a new sled, and it's partly because I'm so in love with this one, and I've not gotten tired of it. I've just looked forward to jumping on it all the time, and it performs. It pulls like a friggin' madman when you put the hammer down. It almost yanks the damn bars out of your hands. So I can only imagine with 12 more horsepower, and I'm gonna do the rave valve cut on it too from Sledhead Racing, which kind of gets rid of a bit of a dead spot in the mid-range. Like my sled doesn't have it too bad, but others I've ridden have it quite bad. So we're gonna do the rave valve modification as well. Yeah, and then just maintenance-y type stuff. Got reeds and clutches to rebuild, and intake boots and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, just pulling up and back to camp, and yeah, hopefully, you know, you got to sit through and suffer through my ramblings, and yeah, now we're back at camp now. Thanks for watching.